My jealous cousin hit me outside the courthouse, grabbed my neck and handcuffed me, spitting, "Filthy animal, family disgrace." My father stood there in silence. 5 minutes later, he froze in shock when he saw me sitting in the judge's chair. Can you imagine being publicly humiliated, slapped across the face, called a filthy animal by your own cousin, with your father just standing there watching? And then, just 5 minutes later, you are the judge sitting on the bench in the very courtroom where this person is about to be arraigned? That's exactly what happened to me. My name is Shannon, and for years my life felt like a constant battle for recognition, especially from my own family. I grew up with a father who barely seemed to notice me, and a cousin, Alicia, who was determined to outshine me always. My mother, Elizabeth, was my world, my champion, the one who actually saw me. But when she died when I was just 12, everything changed. Our home, which was already a bit cold, became an absolute mausoleum of unspoken words and missed connections. With Mom gone, the difference in how my father treated me versus Alicia became unbearable. Alicia, my Aunt Patricia's daughter, was always at our house. She was only 2 years older than me, but somehow she'd secured a spot in my father's heart that I could never reach. "Shannon, why can't you be more like your cousin?" That became the soundtrack of my entire teenage life. Alicia was outgoing, charismatic, quick with a joke that would make Dad laugh. Me? I was more reserved, preferring books to parties. What my father completely missed was that while Alicia was charming, her grades were, well, let's just say mediocre. Meanwhile, I was pulling off a perfect GPA and joining every academic club I could find. I still remember my 8th grade science project. It won the state competition, even got a feature in the local newspaper. My father barely glanced at it. 2 weeks later, Alicia made the junior varsity cheerleading squad, and he took the entire family out to the nicest restaurant in town to celebrate. "Your cousin knows how to be a team player," he told me that night, as if that explained everything. "That will take her further in life than any science award." You know, that stung. As we got older, Alicia's jealousy became more and more obvious. She'd make these cutting remarks about my boring focus on academics. Once, she even spilled soda all over my study notes the night before a major exam. Another time, she told a boy I liked that I'd said terrible things about him, which was a complete lie. These small, constant cruelties really accumulated, and my father? He never ever intervened. The most painful incident happened in high school. For English Lit, we had to write an original short story. I poured my heart into mine for weeks. A tale about a girl finding her voice after losing her mother. Somehow, Alicia got onto my computer, found my draft, copied major portions of it, changed a few words, and submitted it as her own 2 days before the deadline. I was devastated. I confronted her, quietly at first. "What does it matter?" she shrugged. "You always get good grades anyway." I needed this win. Can you believe that? I went to our teacher with both versions, explained everything. The teacher, knowing our academic history, believed me. Alicia got a failing grade. And that's when the family drama exploded. My aunt called my father, absolutely furious that I had humiliated her daughter. And instead of defending me, my father grounded me. He actually grounded me. "Family comes first, Shannon," he lectured. "You could have just written another story." That night I cried myself to sleep, feeling utterly, completely alone. The next morning I went to school early, just wandering, and found myself in the career counselor's office. Mrs. Taylor saw my red eyes, invited me to sit down. We talked for over an hour. And it was the first time I said it out loud. I want to become a lawyer. I want to fight for what's right. I want to be in a place where the truth matters. Mrs. Taylor connected me with a local attorney, Janet Reeves, who became my first real mentor. She showed me that women could succeed in the legal field through intelligence, integrity, sheer determination. And she helped me understand that I didn't need my father's approval to pursue my dreams. When I told Dad about my plan to study pre-law, he dismissed it instantly. "Lawyers are a dime a dozen, Shannon. That's unrealistic dreaming. You should focus on something practical like business administration. You could work for me someday." His words stung, but you know what? They only strengthened my resolve. I applied to colleges with strong pre-law programs, secured scholarships and financial aid, and prepared to leave home behind. College was both liberating and terrifying. Liberating because I was finally away from my father's disapproving glances and Alicia's constant undermining. Terrifying because I was entirely on my own financially. While most of my classmates had parental support, I juggled 3 part-time jobs alongside a full course load. Sleep became a luxury. But I was determined to succeed, without ever asking him for help. I maintained a 3.9 GPA, and landed an internship at the district attorney's office. When I called home to share the news, my father just sounded distracted. "That's nice, Shannon. Did you hear Alicia got promoted at the mall? She's an assistant manager now." Every conversation was the same. My achievements minimized, Alicia's ordinary life developments celebrated. Over time I called home less and less. Meanwhile, Alicia had dropped out of community college after 1 semester, claiming it wasn't for her. This didn't affect her standing in the family at all. My aunt and father continued to praise her street smarts and people skills, while providing her with endless emotional and financial support. When Alicia needed a car, my father co-signed her loan. When I needed new winter boots because mine had holes, he suggested I budget better. The contrast was absolutely painful, but it pushed me to build my own support network. I found true friends like Julia, who became the sister I never had. She was brilliant, funny, fiercely loyal. When I received acceptance letters from 3 law schools, with a substantial scholarship, Julia celebrated with me, buying champagne with money she probably didn't have. When I called my father with the news, he sounded almost annoyed. "Law school? That's at least 3 more years of not earning a real income, Shannon. Are you sure about this?" I graduated with honors and Julia was there, cheering loudly. My father and Alicia? Noticeably absent, despite receiving invitations. That night, celebrating with Julia and my classmates, I realized something profound. I had created a new family, one built on mutual respect and genuine support. My early career as a public defender was challenging, deeply fulfilling. I represented clients who couldn't afford legal counsel, often facing overwhelming odds. For the first time in my life, I felt exactly where I needed to be. Within 2 years, I had built a reputation for thorough preparation, ethical conduct, and genuine concern for my clients. Judges noticed. Prosecutors respected my arguments. One day, Judge Eleanor Thompson, a formidable presence on the bench, pulled me aside after I successfully argued a difficult motion. "You have potential, counselor," she said, studying me over her reading glasses. "Have you ever considered aiming for the bench someday? Becoming a judge?" The question caught me completely off guard. Judge Thompson became my mentor, planting a seed in my mind. News of my professional successes eventually reached my hometown. I heard that Alicia had grown increasingly resentful as she learned about my career. While I was building a reputation in the legal community, Alicia had cycled through several jobs, never staying anywhere longer than a few months. After 5 years of minimal contact, I decided to try reconnecting with my father. Part of me hoped that my accomplishments might finally earn his respect. We met for dinner. It was upscale and the conversation was awkward. He looked older, tired. Before long, he inevitably turned the conversation to Alicia. "Your cousin has been going through a rough patch," he said, swirling his scotch. "Lost another job last month. Not her fault, of course. The manager had it out for her from day one." I nodded politely, having heard variations of that excuse my entire life. "She's had some legal troubles too. Nothing serious. A couple of DUIs, a misunderstanding about some merchandise at her last retail job." Translation: Alicia had been caught stealing from her employer. The familiar pattern of excuses and minimization. "We don't need your charity, Shannon," he said, his expression hardening. "Alicia will figure things out. She always does." The dinner ended soon after. It was clear. Some relationships cannot be repaired by time alone. We had become strangers, connected only by shared DNA and a painful history. A year later, I was shortlisted for a judicial appointment. At 30, I would be among the youngest judges in the state. 2 weeks before the final decision, the committee received an anonymous complaint questioning my character and fitness. The letter alleged I had engaged in unethical behavior, manipulating evidence. It was completely false, but suspiciously detailed about my personal life. I had little doubt about its source. It all pointed to Alicia. Fortunately, my record spoke for itself. Colleagues, even former opponents, vouched for my integrity. Judge Thompson wrote a powerful letter of support. The committee found the claims without merit. I was appointed to the bench. The experience left me shaken, but even more determined. The official announcement came on a crisp autumn morning. At 31, I became the youngest judge in our county's history. The local newspaper ran a front-page story. Judge Thompson was the first to congratulate me, giving me a fountain pen engraved with my initials. "This was given to me when I took the bench 30 years ago," she said. "Now it's yours. Use it to sign orders that uphold justice." My colleagues celebrated with me, but my family, absent. Julia, who drove 3 hours to surprise me, noticed my momentary melancholy. "They're missing out, not you," she whispered, squeezing my hand. "We're your family now." She was right, of course. But you know, there's something about a parent's approval that even the most self-assured adult still craves. 2 days later, my phone rang. A Connecticut area code. My father. After nearly a year of silence. For a fleeting moment, I thought maybe he'd seen the news. Maybe he was finally calling to acknowledge my success. "Shannon, we need to talk," he said, his voice strained, almost desperate. "Is everything okay, Dad? Are you ill?" Concern immediately overrode our complicated history. "No, nothing like that. It's Alicia. She's in trouble. Serious trouble this time." Of course, he wasn't calling about me at all. What kind of trouble? I asked, my voice cooling several degrees. "Legal trouble. Fraud charges, identity theft. They're saying she could face serious time. She needs a good lawyer, Shannon. Someone who knows the system." The irony. It was almost too much. After years of dismissing my legal career as impractical, he was now hoping to leverage it for Alicia's benefit. "Dad, I'm a judge now," I explained. "I can't represent Alicia or recommend specific attorneys. It would be an ethical violation." Silence. Then a bitter laugh. "A judge? Since when?" The question confirmed it. He hadn't even bothered to search my name online. He had no idea. "Since last week," I replied evenly. "It was in the news." Another long pause. "Well, congratulations," he said finally, the words hollow, perfunctory. "But that doesn't help Alicia's situation. Surely you can make some calls, pull some strings." "That's not how this works, Dad. I have ethical obligations now that limit what I can do. The most I can suggest is that Alicia contact the public defender's office." "So that's it? You're abandoning your family when we need you? After everything we've done for you?" The accusation was so outrageous I almost laughed. What exactly had they done for me besides undermine and dismiss me at every turn? He hung up without saying goodbye. Later that evening, I received a call from Lisa Goldstein, a prosecutor I'd faced in court many times. "Shannon, I'm sorry to bother you at home, but I thought you should know. We filed charges today against an Alicia Walker for fraud and identity theft. Given your last name, I wondered if there might be a relation." "She's my cousin," I admitted, "but I haven't had much contact with her in years." "I see. Well, this is awkward, but part of the case involves her apparently using someone else's personal information to open credit accounts. The victim's name is Shannon Walker." My blood ran cold. "She used my identity." "It appears so," Lisa confirmed. "The accounts were opened several years ago using an old address of yours from college." The pieces fell into place. Years ago, I'd gotten strange calls from debt collectors. I dismissed them as scams. Now I understood. "Her arraignment is scheduled for next Tuesday in county court," Lisa continued. "Given the personal connection, I wanted to give you a heads up, so you can make sure you're not assigned to the case." After hanging up, I sat in stunned silence. Alicia had not only tried to sabotage my career with false accusations, but she'd actually stolen my identity years earlier. The depth of her resentment was even greater than I had imagined. I was faced with a difficult decision. As a family member of the victim, I should attend. As a newly appointed judge, I needed to maintain professional distance. As someone who had spent years trying to break free from toxic family dynamics, I questioned if I should involve myself at all. After a sleepless night, I decided to attend Alicia's arraignment. Not as a judge, but as a family member. Maybe, just maybe, seeing her face consequences would be the first step toward taking responsibility. I also hoped that being present might open a door to reconciliation with my father, who would surely be there. Little did I know my decision would lead to one of the most humiliating and ultimately transformative moments of my life. Tuesday morning arrived with perfect autumn weather. Crisp air, golden sunshine. I stood in front of my closet longer than usual. I wasn't appearing as a judge today, but I wasn't just a regular civilian either. I settled on a conservative navy blue dress with a tailored jacket. Professional but not overtly judicial. The drive to the courthouse was familiar, but my churning stomach was not. I had faced countless difficult situations in that building, but nothing had prepared me for seeing my father and Alicia together under these circumstances. I arrived early. As I pulled into the judicial parking, a security officer approached. "Good morning, Judge Walker," he said. "I thought you weren't on the docket today." "I'm not here in an official capacity, Marcus. Personal matter." His eyes widened slightly. "Understood, Your Honor. Will you be entering through the judicial entrance?" I shook my head. "No, I'll use the main entrance today. Thank you." Walking around to the public side, I spotted my father near the steps, checking his watch impatiently. He looked older, his shoulders stooped, hair completely gray. For a moment, watching him unobserved, I felt a pang of something like pity. He glanced up and saw me approaching. His expression cycled rapidly through surprise, confusion, and weariness. "Shannon, what are you doing here?" "Hello, Dad," I said, stopping a few feet away. "I'm here for Alicia's arraignment." His eyes narrowed. "Why? To gloat? To make sure they throw the book at her?" The accusation stung, but I kept my voice level. "Despite everything, she's family. And I thought you might need support too." He seemed taken aback, unable to reconcile my presence with his perception of me as someone who had abandoned family. Before he could respond, a car pulled up sharply. Alicia emerged from the passenger side, my Aunt Patricia from the driver's. Alicia looked terrible. Her hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, dark roots showing. Her face was puffy, eyes bloodshot. She wore a black pantsuit that hung loosely, suggesting recent weight loss. For a moment I felt genuine sympathy. That feeling evaporated the instant she spotted me. "What the hell is she doing here?" Alicia demanded, stalking toward us. Her voice was loud, attracting attention. "Alicia, calm down," my aunt hissed, hurrying after her. "We're at a courthouse." "I don't care. She has no right to be here." Alicia stopped directly in front of me, close enough I could smell coffee on her breath. "Come to watch the show, Shannon? Enjoying seeing me at my lowest?" "That's not why I'm here," I said quietly. "I came to support Dad, and to see if there's any way I can help." "Help?" Alicia let out a harsh, brittle laugh. "That's rich. You're the reason I'm in this mess." My father stepped between us. "Alicia, this isn't the place. Let's go inside and meet with your lawyer." "No." Alicia pushed past him. "She needs to hear this. You think you're so perfect, don't you, Shannon? Little Miss Perfect with her perfect grades and her perfect job and her perfect life. You've always had everything handed to you." The sheer absurdity of her statement left me momentarily speechless. Everything handed to me? I had worked multiple jobs to put myself through school, while Alicia had dropped out of community college and still received my father's financial support. "Alicia, I know you're upset, but that's not true. I've worked hard for everything I've achieved." "Worked hard?" Her voice rose to a near shriek. "You sabotaged me. You told the DA about those accounts, didn't you? You've been waiting for a chance to ruin me." "I didn't know about the fraud until last week," I said, struggling to maintain my composure. "I had no idea you had used my identity." This admission seemed to push her over the edge. "Liar!" she screamed. Then before anyone could react, she slapped me. Hard. Across the face. The blow was shocking more than painful. The sound cracked through the morning air like a gunshot. People around us froze. My cheek burned and I tasted blood where my teeth had cut the inside of my mouth. Before I could recover, Alicia grabbed the collar of my jacket with both hands, momentarily choking me as she pulled me closer to her contorted face. "You filthy animal," she spat, her voice low and venomous now. "You're a disgrace to this family. You think that robe makes you better than us? You're nothing." 2 courthouse security officers were running toward us. My father stood frozen. watching the scene unfold without making any move to intervene. My aunt was pulling ineffectually at Alicia's arm, pleading with her to stop. The security officers separated us, one gently moving me back while the other restrained Alicia. "Is everyone all right?" the first officer asked, looking at me with concern. I recognized him as Officer Ramirez, who regularly worked in my courtroom. "I'm fine," I said, straightening my jacket with shaking hands. "Judge Walker, do you want to press charges?" he asked quietly. Alicia's eyes widened at the word judge. She looked at me with new understanding and pure horror. "No charges," I said firmly, "but I would appreciate an escort inside." Officer Ramirez nodded and began leading me up the steps. As we walked away, I heard Alicia burst into tears behind me. My father still hadn't said a word in my defense. Inside, Officer Ramirez directed me to a small conference room. "Take a minute to compose yourself, Judge. Can I get you some water or coffee?" "Water would be great. Thank you." When he left, I finally allowed myself to feel the full impact. My hands trembled as I touched my stinging cheek. Tears welled in my eyes, not from physical pain, but from the public humiliation and the painful confirmation that my father would always choose Alicia over me, even when she was clearly in the wrong. I had harbored a small hope that today might lead to some form of reconciliation. Instead, it had only reinforced what I had known for years but refused to fully accept. There was no relationship to salvage. In the quiet of that conference room, surrounded by the trappings of the legal system I had dedicated my life to, I finally let go of the fantasy that my family would ever see me clearly or value me appropriately. The realization was both devastating and strangely liberating. A gentle knock interrupted my thoughts. Lisa Goldstein poked her head in. "Shannon, are you okay? I heard there was an incident outside." I managed a weak smile. News travels fast. "It's a courthouse." She sat down concerned. "Security reported what happened. Are you sure you don't want to file charges?" "I'm sure. It would only escalate the situation." Lisa nodded, then checked her watch with a frown. "Have you seen Kevin Morgan around?" "He's supposed to be handling arraignments in courtroom C today." "No, I haven't seen him. Is there a problem?" She sighed. "Judge Reeves was rushed to the hospital this morning. Emergency gallbladder surgery. Kevin was supposed to cover her docket, but he's not answering his phone." A cold feeling settled in my stomach. "Alicia's arraignment is in courtroom C." "Yes, among about 20 other cases," Lisa confirmed, running a hand through her hair. "We're trying to find another judge who can step in, but everyone's booked solid." Court Clerk Barbara Lewis appeared at the door, breathless. "There you are, Lisa. We have a situation." She stopped abruptly when she saw me. "Oh, Judge Walker. Thank goodness. We need your help." "My help?" "Judge Reeves is out for emergency surgery, Judge Morgan is unreachable, and we have a full arraignment docket starting in 15 minutes. You're the only judge in the building who isn't currently in court." "Barbara," I said carefully, "my cousin is on that docket. She's being arraigned for identity theft, using my identity." Barbara's eyes widened. "Oh dear. That is a complication." Lisa interjected. "We could delay the whole docket, but that means 20 people either wait all day or have to come back tomorrow. Some are in custody." I thought quickly. Let me call Chief Judge Hernandez. This requires his guidance. He picked up on the second ring. I explained the situation as concisely as possible. The confrontation outside, my obvious conflict of interest with Alicia's case. "I see the dilemma," he said after a moment. "Here's what we'll do. You can open court and handle the administrative aspects. Explain that you have a conflict with one specific case, and recuse yourself for that matter only. I'll send Judge Patel from my chambers to handle your cousin's arraignment specifically. He was working on opinions today, but can step in for one case." "Thank you, sir. That seems like the best solution given the circumstances. One more thing, Shannon," he added before hanging up. "Document everything about the incident outside. If your cousin made physical contact with you on courthouse grounds, that's a serious matter, regardless of your familial relationship." "Yes, sir." Barbara was waiting anxiously when I hung up. "Judge Hernandez says I should proceed with opening court and handle all cases except Alicia's." Judge Patel will come down specifically for that arraignment. Relief washed over her face. Perfect. Thank you, Judge Walker. I'll have your robes brought to the judicial chambers behind courtroom C immediately. 20 minutes later, I was adjusting my robes. My cheek still showed a faint red mark from Alicia's slap, but it wasn't immediately noticeable. I had pulled my hair back into a tight bun and put on the judicial face I had practiced. Calm, impartial, dignified. When I entered the courtroom through the judge's entrance, the bailiff called out, "All rise. Court is now in session." The Honorable Judge Shannon Walker presiding. As I took my seat at the bench, I scanned the crowded courtroom. My heart nearly stopped when I spotted my father and Alicia in the gallery. Alicia's mouth fell open in shock. My father's face drained of color as he realized who was sitting in the judge's seat. I forced myself to look away from them and focus on the task at hand. Good morning, everyone. We have a full docket today, and I appreciate your patience. Before we begin, I need to make a brief statement. There is one case on today's docket where I have a personal conflict of interest and will be recusing myself. When we reach the matter of State versus Alicia Walker, Judge Patel will temporarily take the bench to handle that arraignment. For all other matters, we will proceed as normal. The court clerk handed me the docket, and I began calling cases. I handled each arraignment with careful attention, explaining charges, confirming rights, addressing bail, setting dates. All the while, I was acutely aware of my father and Alicia watching me from the gallery. With each case I handled competently and professionally, I could feel the weight of their gaze. For the first time, they were seeing me in my element, respected, authoritative, confident. After nearly an hour, we reached Alicia's case. The court calls State versus Alicia Walker, case number 2024 CR 789. As previously stated, I am recusing myself from this matter due to a personal conflict. We will take a brief recess while Judge Patel assumes the bench. I stood and exited through the judge's door, passing Judge Patel in the hallway. Thank you for stepping in, Your Honor. He nodded. No problem, Shannon. Family cases are always complicated. I waited in my chambers while Judge Patel handled Alicia's arraignment. Through the door I could hear the muffled sounds. I resisted the urge to peek. Whatever happened now was out of my hands. 20 minutes later there was a knock. Judge Patel entered, already removing his robe. All done, he said. She pleaded not guilty, but her attorney indicated they'll likely be working on a plea agreement. Given the evidence, that's probably wise. Thank you again for stepping in. He hesitated at the door. By the way, your father asked me where he could find you. I didn't give him any information, but I thought you should know he was asking. My heart skipped a beat. Thank you for the heads up. After Judge Patel left, I returned to the courtroom to finish the remaining cases. Alicia was gone, presumably taken into custody or released on bail. But my father still sat in the gallery, watching me intently. For the next hour I focused entirely on the cases before me, giving each defendant my full attention. With the final case concluded, I adjourned court and retreated to my chambers. I was hanging up my robe when a knock came at the door. Yes, I called, expecting a staff member. The door opened slowly, and my father stood there, looking uncertain, and somehow smaller than I remembered. May I come in? He asked, his voice lacking its usual confidence. I nodded, motioning to the chair across from my desk. For a long moment we sat in silence. The roles of our relationship had suddenly, dramatically reversed. In this room I was the authority figure. He was the visitor-seeking audience. My father cleared his throat. So, a judge? Yes. You never told me. I raised an eyebrow. I tried to, Dad. Many times over many years. You were always more interested in Alicia's latest job at the mall. He flinched at the accuracy of the statement. I saw you today in court. You were impressive. Coming from him, it was perhaps the closest thing to praise I had ever received. I didn't know how to respond, so I simply said, "Thank you." Alicia was released on bail, he continued. Her lawyer seems to think she'll get a plea deal. Probation, restitution, community service. That sounds appropriate for a first offense, I said neutrally. Another long silence. Finally, he said what he had clearly come to say. I'm sorry about what happened outside. She shouldn't have done that. No, she shouldn't have. And I should have stopped her or said something. I looked directly at him. Yes, you should have. He held my gaze for a moment, then looked away. I've made a lot of mistakes, Shannon. With you. I see that now. It was an admission I had waited decades to hear, but it felt hollow, coming only after he had seen me in a position of power and authority. Had I remained a public defender, would this realization ever have come? Why did you always favor her over me? I asked, the question that had haunted me since childhood finally finding its voice. My father sighed heavily. She reminded me of myself. Struggling, making mistakes, needing second chances. You were always so capable, so self-sufficient. Like your mother. His voice caught on the last word. After Elizabeth died, looking at you was painful. You have her eyes. Her determination. So you punished me for reminding you of Mom, and rewarded Alicia for being a mess? He winced. When you put it that way, it sounds terrible. It was terrible, Dad. It was terrible to grow up feeling like I was doing something wrong by doing everything right. The conversation with my father in my chambers that day didn't magically repair 20 years of damage. There was no tearful embrace, no instant reconciliation. But it was a beginning. The first honest exchange we'd had since my mother died. I don't expect you to forgive me, he said as he prepared to leave. But I am proud of what you've accomplished, Shannon. Even if I've been terrible at showing it. Thank you for saying that, I replied. It means something to hear it, even now. We agreed to meet for dinner the following month, a small step toward whatever our relationship might become. As he reached the door, he turned back. Your mother would have been so proud of you. She always said you would do remarkable things. After he left, I sat alone in my chambers, letting tears fall freely for the first time that day. They were complicated tears. Grief for the relationship I had never truly had with my father. Relief at the small breakthrough we just experienced. And a bittersweet pride in how far I had come despite everything. The weeks that followed brought significant developments. Alicia accepted a plea deal. Full restitution for the money she had fraudulently obtained using my identity, 2 years of probation and community service. The prosecutor told me that during negotiations, Alicia had expressed genuine remorse, particularly about the courthouse incident. She asked if you would be willing to meet with her attorney present, Lisa told me over coffee. I considered the request carefully. Not yet. Maybe someday, but I'm not ready for that. My decision to maintain boundaries with Alicia was part of a larger commitment to my own well-being. For too long, I had allowed the hope of family approval to influence my emotions and choices. Now I was prioritizing my own healing. I started seeing a therapist, Dr. Rachel Martinez, who specialized in family trauma. Our weekly sessions helped me process not only the recent dramatic events, but the long-standing patterns that had shaped my life. You've been seeking validation from people who were fundamentally incapable of giving it, she observed during one session. That's not a reflection on your worth, but on their limitations. My support network proved invaluable during this period. Julia visited frequently, bringing home-cooked meals and providing the unconditional friendship that had sustained me for years. My colleagues on the bench checked in regularly, offering both professional guidance and personal support. Judge Thompson, my original mentor, took me to lunch. I heard you handled yourself with remarkable dignity, she said. Not everyone could maintain judicial composure after being assaulted by a family member. I didn't feel very dignified in the moment, I admitted. That's the secret of the robe, she said with a knowing smile. It's not about how you feel. It's about how you conduct yourself despite how you feel. 6 months after the courthouse confrontation, I met my father for dinner at a quiet restaurant. These monthly meetings had become a tentative new tradition, each one slightly less awkward than the last. Alicia has been doing well in her therapy, he mentioned as we waited for dessert. She's holding down a job at the library, staying sober. That's good to hear, I said sincerely. While I wasn't ready to reconnect with Alicia, I didn't wish her ill. How are things with you? Better. He hesitated, then added. I've been seeing someone, a grief counselor. Should have done it 20 years ago, after your mother died. This surprised me. My father had always dismissed therapy as paying strangers to listen to your problems. What changed your mind? I asked. "You," he said simply. "Seeing you that day in court. You were so composed, so strong even after everything that happened. It made me realize how much I've missed by holding on to the past. It wasn't a perfect relationship. Too much water under the bridge for that. But it was honest in a way it had never been before. On the anniversary of my mother's death, I made a pilgrimage to her grave for the first time in years. I brought yellow roses, her favorite, and spent an hour sitting beside her headstone, telling her about my life, my achievements, my struggles. I wish you could have seen me take the bench, Mom, I whispered, tracing the letters of her name with my finger. But I felt you there somehow. One unexpected outcome of my personal journey was a new professional initiative. I started a mentoring program for young women from difficult family backgrounds who were interested in legal careers. Once a month, I invited high school and college students to the courthouse for workshops on law, professional development, and resilience. The law saved me, I told them during our first session. It gave me structure when my life lacked it, purpose when I felt lost, and ultimately, a way to create justice when I had experienced injustice. Watching these young women find their voices and strengths became one of the most rewarding aspects of my life. You're creating a legacy, Julia observed after sitting in on one of the workshops, something that will outlast any family drama. She was right. While I couldn't change my past, I could shape my future and potentially influence the futures of others. The cycle of dysfunction that had defined my family for generations had stopped with me. As I approach my 33rd birthday, I can look back on the past 2 years with a sense of hard-won peace. The young woman who once desperately sought her father's approval has been replaced by someone who understands that true validation comes from within. I recently added a single family photo to my office. Not the staged portraits my father preferred, but a candid shot of my mother and me at the beach when I was about 9. We're both laughing, our hair wild from the wind. Genuine joy, captured in a fleeting moment. It reminds me daily of where I came from and how far I've traveled. The journey of healing is rarely linear. There are still days when old wounds feel fresh, when a casual comment or memory triggers the pain of rejection. But those moments no longer define me or dictate my responses. I've learned that forgiveness isn't about excusing harmful behavior. It's about freeing yourself from the burden of resentment. My cousin's attack at the courthouse door could have been just another painful chapter in our troubled family story. Instead, it became a turning point that ultimately led to greater understanding and peace. When she called me a filthy animal, and my father stood by watching, I thought it was my lowest moment. I couldn't have imagined that minutes later, sitting in the judge's seat, I would begin the process of reclaiming my narrative and redefining my worth. We don't get to choose our families or the wounds they inflict, but we do get to choose how we respond to those wounds, whether we let them define us or use them as catalysts for growth. In taking the judge's seat that day, I wasn't just fulfilling a professional role. I was taking the seat of judgment in my own life, deciding what would hold weight and what would be dismissed. Have you ever had a moment when someone's attempt to humiliate you unexpectedly revealed your own strength? Tell me what you think, I really want to know. Thank you for listening to my journey. Take care.